the keys to problems are never obvious. Otherwise, they wouldn't be problems, right? If the key was obvious, it wouldn't be a problem. It's just a matter now of going and getting the key. But what you've done, Greg, here has helped identify how to find the keys, where to look for them, where they might be, how to create them if they don't already exist. And you end every single chapter with a key. And the keys end up being really actionable, things that you can kind of integrate and work on. And I'm curious, now that you and I are talking, I know which chapter my favorite is. I'm curious which one is yours. Like if you were to highlight one of the keys, one of the chapters for the listeners, if you were to give one of those away for free, which one would it be?
They're all precious to me. But I would say one of the most rewarding was my first go at this particular airline. And I might say that we changed the names of companies and people and places in the book because
to protect the guilty.
We maybe protect the innocent. We're very sensitive to everybody. But as you all know, I would say as most of your listeners would know, the aviation business is very volatile. Jet fuel prices go up, jet fuel prices go down. COVID, people can't travel. People have money, they are traveling. This particular company was a non-union charter airline. So it did not sell seats. You could not buy a seat on this plane. It sold its planes through a charter process of awarding them to wholesale travel tour operators. So a wholesale travel tour operator puts together a package, which is a plane ticket, a car rental, and a room. And when this company was acquired, it was acquired as a 5-year-old company with one asset, an engine, and a bank account, and a fairly sizable bank account. And everything else was leased. And it was doing about $50 million a year in sales and $1 or $2 million in EBITDA, or cash flow, as we talked about before. When the company was acquired, shortly after it was acquired, and there were two founders that had put this together, the president was a revered, highly respected person, and a key guy to the transaction died of failed angioplasty surgery. And so the other partner, who was basically an operations kind of a guy, not necessarily a financial guy, was left with this company and reporting now to the private family that had acquired the company. And I represented the private family. So I said to the private family, it's a horrible situation. The founder, co-founder, and namesake of the company had unexpectedly died. And this was shortly after a flight. He had been a pilot as well. No one knew about the blockage in his heart. So I said, we'll get you the best airline people in the world, and we'll plug this hole and we'll fix it and we'll move forward. And they said, you've worked for us for 10 or 12 years now, and we think you understand our business practices and expectations. You're going to go run it. And so I didn't want to be the face of a non-airline guy stepping into an airline. First of all, no one would believe it. So the co-founder and I got together and joined each other, if you will, as the co-executive officers for the company. And it worked out great, except after a little bit of time, we got into just a hell of a storm with competitors that are scheduled carriers. And we started experimenting a little bit with scheduled airlines. And also the economy had turned. As I said, it's a very volatile industry. And our margins started to compress. And we were slowly turning our profitable airline into negative EBITDA. So you can't run a company with negative EBITDA unless your investors are willing to put more money in and cover the negative EBITDA, or banks or lenders. And the owners who had me on a mission at that juncture, really to save, not necessarily build the company, said, you better fix it. So to answer your question, on the one hand, I ended up laying off 1/3 of a 750 people workforce. And I said, this is like the worst day of my life. I went to zero compensation. I asked everybody that stayed on to take a 30% pay cut, and we cut 1/3 of the workforce. But we also put together a profit sharing plan. And we said, we will turn this company around, we will fix it, and we will put a healthy percentage of our net income into profit sharing for the employees. 25%. 25% of the income of the company to the employees. Find another company in America where they're taking 25% of net income and putting it into employees who own how much stock? None, but they're valued resources. That company came out of that economic time. We were able to hire every single person back, build the workforce up to 750, take the $50 million of revenue, turn it into $250 million of revenue, and build the EBITDA to about $24 million of EBITDA. So wonderful recovery. Best day of my life was to bring those people back. And the union came in, of course, they pounced all over the airline and they wanted to force union and oust management, and a lot of stories I could tell you about that. Union never got a favorable vote. They'd open those votes up in a box in Washington, D.C. It was always no, no, and no. ELPA, Teamsters, machinists, no, no, and no. And we sold the company. It was a wonderful transaction. Unfortunately, the buyers decided they wanted to take the company into scheduled air service and compete with the major airlines across America. And that was a very unfortunate incident. But they did not recover. They put the company into bankruptcy. Those employees were all out of work for 6 months. But guess what? They had tens of millions of dollars in their profit sharing accounts. So no child missed a meal. Every kid had shoes. Everybody went to school. They suffered through for the 6 months. The company was then reformatted and restarted. And once again, they all got to come back to work. It's a great story. The company is now on its 9th owner.
That's one that just doesn't quit.
It doesn't quit. And I think it's the best company in the airline business since Orville and Wilbur took off from Kitty Hawk. We had a lot of fun with it.
I love that story.
That is amazing. Just the fact that 25% of net operating income goes back to the employees like that, that's outstanding.